Just to say who's here, there are wonderful people from some of the HIV clinics in London, some of the people from HIV charities and advocates and people that support people living with HIV in the UK and elsewhere. I've got people who have contributed to the book. If you haven't yet opened the book, you will find out when you open it. It's in 3 parts. The first part is my story in my voice. The second part is the same story but told from the perspective of the people who've been around me at that time. Friends, family, employers, colleagues, supporters, medical staff. And the third part are the narratives. I'm told not to call them stories because these are not works of fiction. But the narratives, 13 other people who have come forward, and the lovely Carol was one of them, and contributed their voices to the book as well. And we'll be hearing from them shortly. I also have people from the Magdalen Players, amateur drama group that I was once a part of, and who want to take a starring role, but sadly it's my night, so... I also have 2 of my wonderful godchildren here somewhere with their lovely partners. And there's probably a couple of people who wandered in off the street because they heard there were free canapes, but that's fine. That's fine. So, what's going to happen is I need to say thank you to a few people, explain to you why the book has happened and what the title means, if you're interested. If you're not, you can fade out on that bit. Then I've asked the ever so sexy, always sexy, Ian Green, who's the Chief Executive of the Terence Higgins Trust, who very kindly was volunteered to write a foreword to the book and has agreed again to say a few words. I'll do a couple of readings from the book, and then 8 of the 13 people who contributed to the part 3 of the book have also agreed to read a small extract from what they have written. And some of these people are apprehensive and nervous, so I'm sure you'll all be very supportive. We will then, sadly, cut the cake. And notice, I know, it has to be done. Well, you want a piece of cake, don't you? Yeah. I'm not going to be cutting it, because I don't. So, one of our lovely caterers will cut the cake. And then, those of you that haven't yet got around to signing your book, or you haven't yet purchased your book, there will be an opportunity at the end to do so before we kick you out at 8:30. So, start off with thanks. Obviously, a big thank you to people who agreed to be interviewed by Tom, who is my wonderful collaborator in the book, who's here somewhere, hiding. You can spot him by the fedora hat. We know you're under the fedora hat, Tom, it's all right. Those people who agreed to participate in the book. About 8 people participated in part 2, and I said 13 people in part 3. Thank you to Ian for your forward and speaking tonight. Tom, couldn't do it without you. Our wonderful publishers, and hopefully Kat from Silverwood. Hello, Kat. You didn't say hello. Have you bought a copy of the book? From Silverwood, the wonderful publishers. Martin from the Canal Museum, who has set all this up. It's such a lovely venue. I mean, he's put up all the lights and everything. He nearly killed himself putting these lights up this evening, so thank you, Martin. Don't sue me. Our wonderful musicians, Janet and Francis, thank you very much. The wonderful caterers, who, those canapes look delicious. I haven't actually eaten any yet, so do save me some. And my final thanks have got to go to the person who has stood by me through. I'm not going to do this. The person who has is not so happy. The person who stood by me through all of this, and without who this just wouldn't have happened. Richard, thank you. So, how did it happen? Ripples. And I have to be really careful, because in my fevered dyspraxic mind, I keep wanting to call it nipples. Nipples gives a whole new connotation, doesn't it? So ripples, remind me, it's ripples, not nipples. Ripples. Why that title? Anybody who is diagnosed with a life-changing condition, it's not only that person who's diagnosed who is affected by that diagnosis, but the people around them as well. And sometimes you lose control of the ripples. Those ripples extend beyond your own personal control. and your diagnosis then has an impact on other people. And as you will see when you read the book, part 2 are my ripples, and the contributors in part 3 have spoken about their ripples as well. From the edge of life, because a lot of people living with HIV in the UK feel marginalised. They feel that they are living on the edge of society. There is still a lot of stigma around HIV and AIDS, and hopefully this book will do something to shift that stigma. When I was first diagnosed, I was told that my AIDS-defining illness was viral encephalitis, and because I'm an actually curious kind of person, I joined the Encephalitis Society, only to discover sometime later that actually it wasn't encephalitis, it was encephalopathy, which is very different, but never mind. And the Encephalitis Society had a book launch, a book that was written by their chief executive, that was a collection of the stories of people living with encephalitis. I went along to the event, and as usually happens, in the Q&A afterwards, I stuck my hand up and expressed my concern that it had taken so long, 2 years, for me to be diagnosed with encephalitis or encephalopathy, and therefore with HIV. And because I was so late diagnosed, I was very ill. And wouldn't it have been so much better if doctors were much more aware of these conditions so that they could be diagnosed much more easily? In the general melee afterwards, various people came up to me and said, "Your story sounds interesting, you should write a book." And I went, "No, you'd be interested in little old me? Really? Really?" But then an article appeared in The Guardian in March 2017, written by Zoe Apostolides, which was called "Why Are There So Few Novels Written About AIDS These Days?" And I thought, well, this isn't a novel. This is not a work of fiction. But perhaps this story needs to be told. But I'm aware that my story is not in any way unique or special. The 103,000 people living with HIV in the UK, everybody has got a unique and special story to tell. And I've heard lots of them from the volunteer work that I've done over the ages. Met so many inspirational, wonderful people. And I wanted to include some of their stories in this, some of their narratives in this book as well. So I reached out to the community, and 13 wonderful people volunteered to contribute their narrative, including 3 fabulous ladies that you will hear from this evening. And it's particularly pertinent because there has just been a report published on why women with HIV in the UK remain largely an invisible community. But these ladies here this evening are here to represent that community and say we shouldn't be ignored. I could have done with more women. I never thought I'd say that. Don't look at me like that, Rob. But there you go, that's life. So, in the 21 years that Richard and I have been together, nearly 21 years, there have been many times when I've put to him some wild, eccentric, perhaps some might say, propositions. And his usual reply is to say, if it makes you happy, do it. But over 21 years, I've begun to recognise there are times when his mouth is saying, if it makes you happy, do it, and his eyes are saying, really? Really? But thankfully, on this occasion, there was nothing in the eyes, perhaps just a dull glaze, but nothing other than that. And he has been, throughout the 18 months it's taken me to, I could have had 2 babies in that time. Well, not me personally, but this is my baby. But Richard has always been very supportive. I actually hit, last week, the Amazon top 10 hot new gay and lesbian bestsellers. I was at number 7, on top of, get this, on top of Rock Hudson. Rock doesn't realise, obviously, that, This has been, I have to say, a self-financing project, and I have used the money that my mother left to me. And I'd like to think that she will be proud of what I've done with her legacy. She never knew that I was diagnosed with HIV and AIDS. She died less than a year after I was diagnosed. She knew I was unwell, but we never told her the full thing. So I have no religious beliefs, but wherever you are, Mum, I hope you're proud. Stigma said is still a big issue, and Tremaine Cornish, who wrote an endorsement for the book, is a member, a trustee of the National Long-Term Survivors Group, with which I've been long associated, and you'll read this in his endorsement. He said, if this book does nothing else but to assist in breaking down the stigma of a positive diagnosis, both from others and unto ourselves, then it will have performed a powerful task. And I sincerely hope that is what happens. As you will read the book, you will see that stigma runs through the stories like Brighton through a stick of rock. I was at a lecture last week given by Dr. Nenko Nkolo, who's a doctor at Dean Street, that was called The End of HIV is Up to Us. And the point of her lecture was that it is stigma. Medical advances have progressed so far. HIV and AIDS is no longer necessarily an automatic killer, although there are still about 400 people a year that die from HIV and or AIDS in the UK. But it is stigma that is the killer. Stigma that affects mental health, and you'll hear some of those stories this evening. People with HIV in the UK have got an average suicide rate which is a third higher than people not living with HIV. So, that's the background to the story.